What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Jumping on here to recap Steelers Bucs preseason game. Not the most eventful one, if I'm being honest, but I still think that there was plenty to take away from this performance. Both the good, bad, ugly, all that kind of stuff. Of course, the final result, them losing kind of late in the fourth quarter, really inconsequential. Not a ton of injuries to take away, honestly. It sounds like Nick Herbig had a little bit of a hamstring, but it didn't seem like it was such a big deal, at least the way that Tomlin was talking about it after the game. Christian Kuntz also left, but it sounds like that they avoided kind of a disaster there as well. But just want to talk through all this kind of stuff before we dive into that. If you guys could, please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment. All that stuff is really appreciated on my end. I really appreciate the continued support from everybody, but definitely a bit of a slowish start on the offense and defensive side of the ball. I would say I kind of want to start on the offensive side. There's definitely good takeaways to be had from the first team offense. I continue to be really impressed just with the pass protection element, specifically from the tackles. Just through the first, 4 or 5 drives that they've had so far this preseason, I think Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu have been nearly spotless in pass pro. And that's really been encouraging, especially when you're talking about the fact that they're going to be blocking for, an older quarterback who's not very mobile this season. But I just continue to be really impressed. I went back and watched like all their pass pro reps already this morning. I just think that there's a lot of encouraging stuff going on with that. And in order for the Steelers offense to really take a leap this season, I think that those two guys are going to have to play really up to their pedigree. There's going to be bumps in the road, I would imagine, especially with the youth of both of them. But just, again, it's good signs. It's only 4 drives, so it's a small sample size, but I've been really impressed with both of those guys. I would say also, Roman Wilson continuing to stack good in-stadium performances, I think, is definitely notable. Getting his confidence there. I found it pretty interesting that Mike Tomlin, when he was talking with Missy Matthews on the sideline, for those of you guys that got that version of the broadcast, I thought it was pretty interesting that he said that, they've been really conscious. I think, I forget the exact wording he used, but basically saying they've been really conscious about trying to get him going in the preseason was what I got from it. And, the first explosive play, they're running a little like Mills concept with the Bucs playing quarters. Anytime you're getting quarters coverage, you got to post on. You want to try to alert that thing. And I think, honestly, Wilson would have scored fairly easily because he blew right past Jamel Dean, who's a quality starting corner. He blew right past, and the ball was a little bit underthrown from Mason Rudolph, but a huge hookup over 40 yards. Definitely a really nice rep there. And then later he got free on a little crossing route. Looks like the Bucs busted the coverage on that one, but it was another explosive play. So just again, I think it's a confidence builder, and it's been really nice to see just like Arthur Smith's utilization of him. A lot of condensed formations, not trying to keep him away from press coverage, a really, simple route tree, just trying to get him playing fast and utilizing his speed to stretch the field vertically, stretch the field horizontally. And just from the Steelers' offensive perspective, there's a ton of team speed on the perimeter this year, which I'm excited to see how they're going to be able to use that. So just kind of continuing on with the kind of first team offense, I obviously a little bit less clean night for Mason Rudolph. He had the early interception. They're running little Haas wide juke concept. Interesting, because I don't remember seeing that as much last year. I think I saw it in the preseason maybe, but really Haas is just, you get a stop route on the outside. They were in empty, and then the number 2 receivers trying to run a seam. It is typically pretty good against cover 3, but Rudolph just like made a weird kind of gaff, and he started staring down Wilson really from the time that he got the ball. Unfortunately, the snap was low, so I wonder if that kind of threw off the timing a little bit. Again, not trying to make excuses for the poor decision. You're staring at guys that's going to get intercepted when guys are playing with vision on the ball on the back end from a secondary perspective. But I think that kind of leads us a little bit into the concerning elements, I would say, on the offensive side of the ball. The snaps have been, widely reported from all the beat reporters that have been at training camp on a daily basis. Snaps have been an issue for Zach Frazier really since like the first day of camp. There's just a lot of balls that are ended up rolling back to the quarterback, forcing them to make difficult plays. And especially when you're playing that much in the shotgun, you already kind of have to take your eye off of what's going on downfield, and you're not as aware of like coverage rotations and things like that. But when you're having to make acrobatic kind of catches just to get the ball, it's definitely not a good thing. Throws off the timing of the play for sure. He had at least 2 low snaps in the 6 or however many 10 plays or however long he was in the game. So it's just something that I'm keeping an eye on. I also think like just like the run game in general, they finished the first half, I think it was like 8 carries, 24 yards. Definitely not great. I think 14 or 15 of those came on that one Kaleb Johnson run that he kind of broke off for a nice play. But just in general, like you look at the numbers, the yards per carry stuff definitely looks better. It's aided by, some fourth quarter runs by Lou Nichols, who I thought was a quietly strong performer in this one once again. But you look at the box score numbers, and it's 22 carries, 115 yards, but 93 of those came after contact. I mean, you just look at Kaleb Johnson's numbers alone. It's just him having to force a lot of missed tackles and really just not a lot of room being created by the offensive line. I do think Kaleb, as the game got going further along, he started to feel more comfortable. You started to see him hit some of those cutback lanes and really, try to work his way through, getting good momentum going through the hole. Definitely some times where I think he could be a little bit more deliberate in terms of getting north and south, but I definitely think that this game was a step in the right direction. He ended up forcing 5 missed tackles on 11 carries, so pretty solid in that perspective. But overall, offensively, pretty encouraged what I saw as the game went on with the wide receiver group. I thought Brandon Johnson did some nice things early in the game. He drew that defensive pass interference penalty. Also did a nice job working back to the football in that scramble drill with Mason Rudolph to score the game's first touchdown. Some of the guys, the other wide receivers, I would say, have had nice impacts as well. I think Scotty Miller is firmly on this 53-man roster. I'll have my 53-man roster updated projections up for Steelers now, probably tomorrow, so you guys can go read that. But Scotty Miller will be on there. I think that he's going to be the 5th wide receiver that makes it. And honestly, he's had a strong camp. I said that, when I came back from my takeaways, he was the second best receiver on the roster that I saw behind DK in the 3-4 days that I was there. He had a couple nice plays in this one as well, but I thought Rock Taylor did some nice things. Unfortunately, a couple inaccurate throws down the field with him not being able to connect with the quarterbacks kind of made his stat line look not as good as it probably could or should have. But just some other like frustrating things that I would say, like one more thing about the running game. Like the first 2 carries of the game, Kenneth Gainwell gets stopped at the line of scrimmage. I had to go back and like really check the film on like to see exactly what happened. But a really big theme that I'm noticing is like there's still not a ton of like variety in the run game menu, and maybe that's on purpose with the preseason, just trying to get the fundamentals down with all the wide zone stuff. But at the same time, it's like those 2 carries, could we not have seen Kaleb run behind the first team offensive line, knowing that that's kind of the intent of the regular season? Gainwell's really here just to catch passes. Like that is what his role is going to be on this team. Like he is a pass catching, a receiving threat out of the backfield. He's not really a runner. Like he's not going to take those type of carries in the regular season. So that kind of irked me a little bit, if I'm being honest with you. But overall, I thought the other quarterbacks, Skylar Thompson, Logan Woodside, those guys also threw interceptions. Not really going to get into those performances. I thought that maybe Skylar Thompson could make things a little bit interesting if he followed up a strong outing last week, this week as well. And kind of, if he was able to string like 3 preseason games quality, I would have said that things would have got interesting to see with what you would do with Will Howard, just because he's hurt right now. Do you put him on IR? Maybe try to stash him. The Steelers always like keeping 3 quarterbacks. But last night wasn't good enough, in my opinion, on a couple different levels. Not that he played too terribly necessarily, but I just don't think it's good enough, in my opinion, to not at least want to stash Will Howard, see what you got there. Logan Woodside, I have no comment on that. I'm good on any more Logan Woodside dropbacks in the preseason, to be honest with you. Just kind of moving on to the defensive side of the ball, definitely some good things, flashes, I would say, with Derek Harmon. Of course, he had that like insane bull rush rep against the Buccaneers. Granted, it was like a 3rd string guard that he did that against, but that's what it's supposed to look like, right? Like we talked about it, 1st round pick. You want to see those flashes of dominance in the preseason. Definitely liked what I saw there from Harmon. That was by far the best rep that we've seen. He was also like maybe a little bit more up and down versus the run, but I do think he was probably better against the run in this one off first glance than he was last weekend. So continuing moving on that upwards trajectory. A couple guys I thought were really strong against the run. Cole Holcomb, he was on my dudes list that I posted immediately following the game. I pretty much do that every week if you're not familiar or new to the channel over there on SteelersNow.com. But Holcomb really flying around. He's been around the ball frequently throughout this preseason. Him and Malik Harrison, I think, have been really, really solid against the run. I think with the Steelers, them having Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson really etched in Sharpie as the two top inside linebackers. I'm really not sure of like how many snaps are going to be able to go around. Like I honestly think like Holcomb could actually be a game day scratch just because he doesn't really play special teams, or maybe he's the special teamer and then they only like whoever the fifth backer that they keep, which I would assume probably Mark Robinson right now. Maybe they're inactive. I'm not really sure how the distribution of labor is going to be, but just from a depth perspective, I think you've got to feel extremely good about like where the Steelers are at right now with off-ball linebackers. And to be honest with you, that's just not the case. If you look around the league right now, like I don't think there are very many rosters that have like 4 playable guys to be transparent with that. So, but I think Holcomb did a really nice job again last night. Malik Harrison, I've been impressed by like how he's taken on blocks. He's kind of pseudo filled some of the stuff that Landon Roberts did for this team over the past couple of years. But just kind of moving on to I really thought that the performance from Logan Lee, not defensive related, but him being able to come in and like long snap was super impressive to me, man. Like, I'm not sure if you guys have ever tried to attempt to long snap for a punt before. It's been a really long time since I think I did it one time in like middle school. It is pretty difficult. And the fact that I have no clue, I'm sure the reporters talked to him about it yesterday, but no clue when the last time he's done that. But that is just super impressive to do that in an in-game stadium. Just on a whim was pretty awesome. I don't think it's going to necessarily mean that he's going to have a better shot to make the 53-man roster. Maybe that's a way that he can prolong his career, but Logan's a good dude too. So I'm happy that he was able to kind of come up big in that moment. And then kind of the last bit of like winners, I already mentioned Lou Nichols, but I think the punter competition is really, really heating up, to be honest with you. I had to go back and like watch those reps again last night, but I feel like both guys have been really, really solid, pinning punts inside the 20. Corliss Waitman had a couple boomers last night as well. So, I've always said, or I've said this since, OTAs, but I think best case scenario is that both of those guys play really, really well in the preseason. And then maybe some other team that maybe they unfortunately lose their punter due to injury, or they're just looking for an upgrade, tries to ship the Steelers maybe a 6th-round pick in return for a 7th-round pick and try to win the margins in that regard. But both those guys, I feel like are having some really strong performances, and that battle's been really going back and forth. In terms of the negatives on the defensive side of the ball, I would just say, Peyton Wilson had a couple rough moments early in this one. It's in coverage. K-Dot beat him across his face early on that 3rd down play, ended up dropping it. Then we got the bizarre penalty by Deshaun Jameson on the kick that ended up extending the drive, and then they come out, they get him in man coverage empty, and Bucky Irvin runs that go route on him. I mean, Wilson is in phase, at least on the 2nd rep. He just didn't get his head around to play the ball in the air, and it was just tough kind of bang play. But the Steelers have talked like ad nauseum about like him developing in coverage. I think he's definitely better suited at this point right now to play man coverage than zone, but that is kind of the next step in his development. I have been impressed by him being quicker to trigger downhill. I think you definitely saw that last week in particular, but just, growth and development in terms of, being stronger in coverage. Again, I don't think he's like so far away or like beyond like saving. It's just, part of the developmental process. But then I think the pass rush outside of what they got. I mean, Nick Herbig only played a couple snaps. He had a quick hurry. I already mentioned the flash that we got, fortunately, from Derek Harmon early. But really, aside from that, Steelers just really didn't get a ton of like pass rush production again. It's really been the weakness, I feel like, on the defensive side of the ball through 2 games. Granted, the obvious caveat there is like a lot of the Steelers stars are up front and they're not playing right now, right? So, definitely north notable, but some of the depth guys have definitely struggled to a certain degree. I mean, like you look at some of their young guys in this one. Jack Sawyer had 23 pass rush reps. He only had 1 total pressure, 13% win rate. Definitely not what you kind of want to see. I think for Sawyer, it's really just about figuring out like what type of rusher he's going to be at the NFL level. Last night on the reps that I was trying to like really hone in on what his approach was. Just a lot of trying to win like the outside track, and even sometimes when he was able to clear the hands, like he wasn't able to quite bend the corner. He was just getting pushed up the arc and really out of the play too frequently. So I just want to see a little bit more variety, see if he can maybe incorporate a little bit more power in there. But this is just part of the process, right? With the preseason, you got a day 3 edge rusher. They're trying to figure out the speed of the game and how they're going to be able to win at this level. So, hopefully he can, continue to trend upwards. And then I would just say, like, it's really tough when you got a guy like, DeMarvin Leal out there playing too. Like, Leal's not really an edge rusher. I think he had maybe like 0 or 1 pressures. Again, he struggled last week, but not really a true edge rusher out there. So you're not really getting a lot of push on the outside. I thought the interior rush at times was okay, but just not good enough. I felt like the Bucs quarterbacks had a lot of time to throw the ball, distribute the ball to the playmakers, especially in the first half. So that's really what I'm focused on more than anything else. But from a coverage standpoint, I already kind of mentioned the Logan or the Peyton Wilson, unfortunate, touchdown that he allowed. Kind of similar thing, honestly, with Brandon Eccles, that corner route that Abuka. I mean, it's a great catch by Abuka, but Eccles is in like fine position on that play. He's just got to look back and get his eyes back to the football. So just a couple tough moments in that regard. I don't necessarily think that it's anything indicative of those two players in general, but just I don't think the secondary exactly played all that well. I have been impressed by the tackling of the safeties. Chuck Clark, I think he's been really, really strong in run defense. Like if he does end up having to step in and play for a little bit at that strong safety spot, I feel pretty solid about that. And then Juan Thornhill, he's been reliable as a tackler so far. So we'll see if that continues. He's had a really good camp, so hopefully that'll translate to the regular season as well. It's pretty much all I got. I don't know if I had any other notes. That's pretty much already talked about the snaps with Frazier. But again, 53-man roster projection up tomorrow for SteelersNow.com. I'm gonna try to have some form of film room up in the next couple of days. Hopefully the NFL doesn't try to copyright it. We'll see what that looks like, though. I am also going to try to use the post function more on YouTube. So like I will be like posting you stuff for you guys to look at just to see the content schedule, what I'm writing about, what I'm planning on doing. Like I'm gonna try to incorporate some form of like previews, some form of recaps, film rooms, just different like Q&A stuff, live streams, things like that. But if there's stuff that you guys want to see or want me to do, please drop those in the comments as well. And then I think this week, Jens No Ball comes back with John Ledyard. So if you guys have ever listened to me and John get together and talk Steelers, I'm pretty sure we're going to record that hopefully Monday or Tuesday, and that'll be available for channel members, which you can sign up in the link in the description. I'm really excited about that, excited about the regular season. We got a quick turnaround, too, with the Steelers playing on Thursday. So we got a lot to do over the next week, and I'm excited about it, talking some ball. So as always, I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your weekends. I will talk to you all soon. Peace and love.